This is Michael Chugani. Get ready for some straight talk. With me is Rimsky Yuen, the Secretary for Justice. Mr. Rimsky Yuen, thank you for being here. This is the second episode of Straight Talk, and thanks for being here. Now, I'm going to go straight to public consultation for political reforms that ended last week.
Yes.
And then after that, now the next step is the government will put out a proposal next month. And then after that, the Legislative Council must vote on this proposal before their summer recess. It is now March, and the summer recess is not that far away. You haven't put out a proposal. Once the proposal is out, it'll have to be voted on in LegCo in a few months. Surely that's dreaming. You can't expect that to happen so fast.
The forthcoming few months would be very critical. Not only do we have to work on the proposal by going through the submissions that we received during the 2 months consultation period, we would also have to look at the various political as well as legal issues that might arise. And then, as you said, we need to put forward the proposal concerning the amendment of the method in Annex 1 of the Basic Law for the selection of the chief executives. And more importantly and more difficult is to gather more than 2/3 of the supports of the LegCo members. That would be the critical part. So we are, as we have been saying in the past, facing very daunting challenges, but we would, as always, work our very best to it.
Well, as I said, it is March, Mr. Secretary. You've got April, May, June, July.
Yes.
LegCo goes into recess. You've got 4 months.
Yes.
And you have to wait a month before the proposal comes out. Once the government proposal comes out as to how we're going to achieve universal suffrage in 2017, the public will have to look at it, and then the legislative councils will have to either veto it or pass it. This is a very, very short time frame. Can you really sit here, Mr. Secretary, and tell me you can achieve that time frame?
I think in terms of time frame, we could be in a position to manage, because many of the issues, particularly the key issues, have been debated and discussed for quite some time.
No, I didn't mean that. I meant what I meant was that the democracy camp says they will veto it. You've got a few months to get enough votes from them to get it passed.
I see. That, as I said, is a difficult task, but I think it would very much depend on how the general public would react to the proposal. And at the end of the day, whether the majority of Hong Kong people want to take one step forward so as to achieve universal suffrage. We hope that the pan-democratic Legislative Council members would really listen to the views of the people of Hong Kong and to practice what they preach, i.e. democracy, because we
you feel they're not being democratic now? What do you mean practice what they preach?
Well, if you want to be democratic, you listen to the views of the people of Hong Kong. And in the past few months, the various survey shows that there are more people who are willing to move forward than to oppose a proposal based on the NPCSC decisions made in August last year. So if they preach and also practice democracy, they should pay heed to the views of the people of Hong Kong.
Well, you know what? The chief executive, Mr. Siwa Leong, said last week in Beijing that Hong Kong people need to be realistic. Let's see what he says.
And there's no question of the National People's Congress withdrawing the decision that it made on the 31st of August. There's no question of restarting the process, because time, other considerations apart, would not allow it. And so everyone in Hong Kong will have to be realistic about this.
Now, what he said was there is no question of the National People's Congress taking back the political framework. Therefore, Hong Kong people need to be realistic. You were talking about the democracy camp having to listen to public opinion if they want to be really democratic. Do you think, in your opinion, Mr. Secretary, that they are now being unrealistic?
If anyone...
That's what the chief executive said. You've got to be realistic.
Yes. if anyone were thinking of having a chance to have the NPCSC decision made last August change or even withdrawn, then I think that would be an unrealistic view. From what I heard, that is not going to happen.
100% that's not going to happen.
From what I know. And I think the more realistic way forward, and that is in the overall interest of Hong Kong, is to work on the basis of the NPCSC decision and see what we can achieve on that basis so that everyone can have a vote in the year 2017. I think that's more realistic.
Well, you know, if that's more realistic, okay, but the Democrats are not buying that. What you're now doing, what the government is now doing, there's been a lot of talk about that you will try and get 4 or 5 of the 27 Democrats to cross to your side and get this package passed in the summer. What I'm putting to you is this. You get 4 Democrats to come across to your side. That is not going to make things easier because the public will say, you found 4 traitors, and therefore the chief executive elected in 2017 will not have the mandate that you think they'll have. And the people who didn't cross over will continue to filibuster and to gridlock. How is that good for Hong Kong if you find 4 people and then get this thing passed?
Well, first of all, as we have been saying, we are not aiming only at 4. We are hoping that...
You haven't even got 1 now.
Yes, that's why I said it's difficult. But our aim is not just to get 4. We want to get as many as possible. And the reason is we want to have the Legislative Council members to listen to the views of the Hong Kong people. Now, you use the word traitor. I'm not too sure whether that is appropriate because at the end of the day, if we, the majority of the people in Hong Kong, thinks that we should move one step forward, then those people, those members of the Pan-Democrat clan who would support the proposal of the government, they are not traitors. I would say they are being A, realistic, B, they are being irrational.
Is that how the public will see them? The public will say, what did you or the central government give them to cross? Did you pay them off?
Well,
that's the cynical view.
There's no questions of paying off. I think at the end of the day, one have to assess the political situation as well as the overall interests of Hong Kong. There are, at the moment, more people who want to move forward. So if anyone who's in LegCo who voted against will in effect be blocking the way that we are trying to move forward.
Well, yeah, that is true, Mr. Secretary. But you say you're trying not only to get 4, you want to get as many as possible. Surely that is something you're saying, but knowing in your heart you're not going to get it because you cannot even get 4. You haven't got 1. How can you get more than 4 in the next few months?
I won't say it's totally impossible. I admit from the start that it's extremely difficult, but politics being politics, and there are from now until June or July still a couple of months, and one can also see in the past couple of months the trend has been changing, the trend showing the public sentiment. So there might be at one point of time that members of the Pan-Democratic camp would come around and say, okay, we recognize this is the wish of the people of Hong Kong, and therefore in the overall interest of Hong Kong, we would support, irrespective of whatever wills they might have. I won't exclude that possibility. I know the job is very difficult, but there is no reason that because it's difficult or the job is difficult, then we should now sit back and do nothing.
1 out of 10. 1 out of 10. How many points would you give the possibility of that happening? 1, 2 points?
I think not everything can be measured by scientific measurements such as giving a figures of 1 to 10.
Well, I wish you luck. But I want to ask you this.
Thank you for that.
I want to ask you this. Is it really, Mr. Secretary, is it really the end of the world if this is not passed, if this framework that the central government has given us is vetoed by the Democrats in LegCo? Is that really the end of the world? Can we survive without this so-called true democracy?
I don't I don't think we would say it's the end of the world. Hong Kong will certainly continue. However, depending on the future political development, the fact that we could not have the universal suffrage for selecting our chief executive would certainly cause more political controversy, and it would cause more issues in terms of the governance of Hong Kong. But Hong Kong people are being very realistic on the whole, and I think Hong Kong's spirit would continue, and therefore I think Hong Kong can survive. But the question is not so much whether Hong Kong can survive. The question is whether Hong Kong should be better.
Oh, you're saying that the framework will make Hong Kong better, but what I'm asking you is this. It looks very likely, despite your hope and your wish that it will be passed, it looks very likely that it won't be passed unless something drastic changes. And it is not passed. How do you see politically Hong Kong in the future if this thing is vetoed?
I think if we...
Will there be continued gridlock in LegCo and you can't get things done?
Whether or not there would be gridlock in LegCo would very much depend on the result of the 2016 LegCo election. And that in turn would very much depend on how people view those people who veto the political reform package. I think Hong Kong voters are very sensible, and they know who veto or block the passage of the reform. And therefore, I think that would be one aspect that we need to consider. The other aspect is, I hope, of course, in future, we can segregate political issues from other issues such as livelihood issues, as well as issues which concern our economic development. I think in a society like Hong Kong, we should not confine ourselves to political issues. We are also equally...
We've got to deal with livelihood issues, but I've got to take a quick break. See you soon, more Straight Talk ahead.